So hello everyone, we are going to talk about Voila today. So Voila is a tool to do dashboarding in Jupyter. We are going to show you a quick overview of Voila if you don't know it already. Then we'll show you some updates that we have. And finally, we'll show you a quick demo of a new project that we are excited to show you. So first, a couple of words about us. My name is Martin. I'm a software engineer at Quantstack since 5 years. I've been working in many projects orbiting around Jupyter, from Jupyter kernels to Jupyter frontends like JupyterLite and JupyterLab. And I've also worked on many widgets libraries in Jupyter, like hyperwidgets, hyperleaflet, and bqplot.
Hello everyone, my name is Trung. I'm also software developer at Quantstack for about 2 years, and I work on various projects in the Jupyter ecosystem, mostly the front end of JupyterLab, Voila, and different widgets and extensions.
So you can find us on Twitter and GitHub. So first, what is Voila? So Voila is a tool to make dashboarding in Jupyter. So it's very easy to use. It's actually an official project, an official Jupyter project based on many core Jupyter tools like NB-Convert and Jupyter Server. And the way it works is that you just type from the command line Voila with the name of your notebook, and it will spawn a server and serve your notebook, execute it, and show only the output of it. And unlike NB-Convert, which generates a static version of your notebook, Voila will make it, is completely dynamic. I mean, it's based on Jupyter Server. It has a Python kernel running on the back end. So if you have interactive widgets, they will keep working. And Voila is completely extensible. It's based on Jinja for the templating, so you can create custom Jinja templates to make it look like you want. So let's do a quick demo first. Hopefully everything works. What I have here, I have just one notebook in my directory. Let's just quickly show it to you. So this notebook is using bqplot and NumPy, and it will just show a plot and allow you to do a small gradient descent using some widgets. So I'm choosing the starting point here, and when I press go, it will do the gradient descent. So when I press go, it actually calls Python callbacks, so it needs a Python backend to execute. So if I close this and show it to you with Voila this time, I just do Voila with the name of the notebook. And like I said, it spawns a server, executes it, and shows the outputs. And it's still interactive. Voila. So using Voila, you have a couple of options to change the look of it. So you can change, for example, the theme to be dark. So by default, it supports the light and dark theme, just like in JupyterLab. And it actually supports, since, 0.3, it supports any JupyterLab theme. So if you have a custom JupyterLab theme that you installed from PyPy, it works in JupyterLab and it will also work in Voila. So that's it for the theme. You can also change the template. Voila comes with some default template. For example, the reveal template, which allows you to make a slideshow using your Voila notebook. So this will be my first slide with the markdown cells, and my second slide. And it's still interactive. And finally, by default, Voila doesn't show the input code. This is for security. Users don't have access to the code, and they are not allowed to execute arbitrary code in the dashboard. But you can say strip sources equals false, and this will show the input. So it depends who you want to show your notebook to. You can either show the input or not show it. So that's it for the demo. Yeah, it works. So yeah, customize your dashboards. So like I said, it's based on Jinja templates, Voila, just like NBConvert. By default, it comes with the reveal template, which allows you to make a slideshow. You can also install some templates that are published here and there. For example, the Voila grid stack template, which allows you to show each cell in a bubble, and you can move and resize bubbles around to make the layout you want. And you have the Vuetify template that I wanted to show too, which is quite exciting. It doesn't look like a notebook anymore. It's completely custom, and it's completely reactive as well. You can watch it on your smartphone or on your tablet, and it reacts to the small size. And you can make your own Jinja template. It's not too complicated. You can make your own Jinja template with your company logo on the top if you want. That works. So Trung will continue with the performance improvements that we made in Voila.
Thanks, Matang. I want to talk about a feature of Voila to help dashboard author to reduce the loading time of the dashboard, and it is called the preheated kernel. And in normal mode, in Voila, when you open the dashboard, what actually happened on the server is that it will start a new kernel. It will execute the notebook inside this kernel, get the output, and convert it into HTML, and then send it into the front end. So the idea behind preheated kernel is to move the resource-intensive task, in this case is kernel startup and the notebook execution, into Voila startup time instead of dashboard startup time. And in case it can reduce drastically the loading time of the dashboard. And for this feature, we have two modes. The first one is a fully pre-executed notebook. And in this mode, when you start Voila, Voila will create a pool of kernel, and it will fill the pool with the kernel. And after finishing start up the kernel, it will execute the notebook inside it, and then convert the output into HTML, and save the HTML into a cache. When an actual user connects to Voila, Voila will send the cache version of HTML into the front end, and then connect the front end with a pre-executed kernel. And by doing so, we can reduce a lot of loading time of the dashboard. For example, here in the GIF, I have a dashboard which normally takes around 5 seconds to be executed in JupyterLab. And then when we render it with Voila, we need to add kernel startup time, the overhead of Voila, and in the end, we need 9 seconds to render the dashboard in Voila. When we activate the fully pre-executed notebook with this dashboard, we can render it in 0.6 seconds. So it's a huge improvement. But in order to profit from this feature, the dashboard needs to be independent of the user input so that it can be pre-rendered at startup time of Voila. In the case the dashboard depends on some user input, we have another mode. It is called a partially pre-executed notebook. In this mode, you can mark your notebook to tell Voila that the first part of the notebook can be executed at Voila startup time, and the remaining part of the notebook will be executed at dashboard startup time. And for example, here I have a dashboard which will get the stock name from the query string of the endpoint. And then it will fetch the data from internet and display the price of the stock in the widget. In normal mode, it takes around nearly 7 seconds to finish everything. And when we activate the partially pre-executed notebook, it takes only nearly 4 seconds. Because at Voila startup time, we can only do on the library importation, and we can already create an empty widget. And when one user connects to Voila with a query string, Voila will send this query string to the kernel, and the kernel will continue the execution of the notebook. And as dashboard startup time, we only need to fetch the data and replace the graph in the widget with the real data. And so this preheated feature is already available in Voila 0.3. And in this feature, we incorporate also the improvement of iPad widget to improve the render time of the dashboard with a lot of widgets. And the next major version of Voila will be Voila 0.5, and we will release it this summer. And the major new in the Voila 0.5, the first one, we did a completely overhaul the front end of the Voila. Now the front end of the Voila is built on top of JupyterLab component. It is similar to the ongoing work of Jupyter Notebook 7. Now the front end of Voila is closer to JupyterLab ecosystem. And the first benefit of it is that now Voila supports JupyterLab extension. Because up to now, when you want to use a custom widget, it needs to be packaged as a notebook extension. But now you can use directly JupyterLab extension in Voila. And so it will support also JupyterLab team. The second news is we make use of JupyterLab my rendering logic. So Voila will support on custom JupyterLab renderer like Fasta, Vega, Zelzison, Bokeh, and so on. And the last point, in Voila, we upgrade the server part of Voila to Jupyter Server 2, so it will profit from all the security improvement of Jupyter Server 2. This is what we want to talk about Voila. And before moving to the next part of our talk, I want to talk a little bit about JupyterLite. And yesterday, Jeremy Tuplu already did a very detailed talk about JupyterLite. But in case you missed it, I will do a very quick reintroduction of JupyterLite. Basically, JupyterLite is a JupyterLab distribution that runs entirely in the web browser, and the code execution part is handled by WebAssembly kernel. So JupyterLite can be deployed as a static web page, so it is very cheap and simple to deploy a distribution of JupyterLite. For example, our presentation is a static web page hosted on GitHub, and I can embed JupyterLite into it. Here I have a fully fetched interface of JupyterLab where I can open a notebook with Python kernel, and I can execute it code on it. And I want to talk about JupyterLite because we want to do the same thing with Voila. So we want to have something similar to JupyterLite, but for dashboarding. So today I'm very happy to announce that we are working on a sibling of Voila. It is called Voici. And first of all, Voici is another way to say Voila in French. So it's very close to Voila. And Voici is a new tool to turn any Jupyter notebook into a static web application. And the static here in the sense of deployment. You can deploy it as a static web page, but it still has all the dynamic aspect of a Voila dashboard. And it is a perfect match between Voila and JupyterLite because we reuse the JupyterLite component to build the front end of Voici. But we reuse the command line interface and the theme and templating system of Voila in Voici. And Voici will support any JupyterLite kernel like Python, Lua, SQLite, and etc. Voici is still in the development phase, but you can already try it on PyPy by using pip install Voici. And just like Voila, Voici comes with a command line interface. And if you already use Voila, you can just replace Voila by Voici, and you will get your Voici version of your dashboard. And it is basically a static web page. You can host it anywhere. And Voici support all the argument and option of Voila. So you can reuse Voila template, Voila theme, and all the options, except the option related to the kernel. For example, the preheated kernel is not available on Voici. So Voila and Voici have a lot of common points, but they still have some difference. The first difference is in the code execution model. In Voila, you use a real kernel running on the server. Like I talked in the preheated part, it will start a new kernel when you open a Voila dashboard. In Voici, it still needs to have a kernel, but it uses a WebAssembly-based kernel running on your browser. For example, in Python, Voici supports PyODI and the WebAssembly version of Zeus Python. The second point is network access. In Voila, you have a direct access to your file on your disk, and you can send any request to any endpoint by using, for example, the Python library request. And you can also send requests to your database. In Voici, you can still have access to your file, but it is not direct, and it needs to go through a service worker running on the web browser. And you can still send requests to your endpoint by using the request library of Python. But behind the scene, it will use the fast API of JavaScript to send your request. So the request is sent from the front end, and it is bound to the code origin check. The last point is code scale exposure. Like Martin already talked, in Voila, you can hide completely your source code, and Voila only shows the output of your dashboard. So theoretically, you can put secret into your notebook and serve it in Voila, and user only gets the output and they cannot access to the secret. But in the case of Voila, because it will execute the notebook in the front end, so user will get access to all the source code of the notebook. So this is the point you need to take attention when you convert a Voila dashboard into a Voila dashboard. So I think it's enough talk, and now Martin will do a live demo of Voila.
So actually, you don't know, but we've been making a live demo of Voila since the beginning, because actually this presentation is a Voila dashboard. So you can scan the QR code if you want to look at the dashboard. Please bear in mind that if you scan the dashboard, you will download some megabytes of Python packages to be able to run the kernel and everything. So yeah, and you can find the source code of our presentation on GitHub. So yeah, so you can see you can simply execute Python code, simple execution with std out. You can read files that were included in your Voila build, and you can display them. We have widget support. So for example, here I created a slider, and whenever I move the slider, I update the text box value to be the square of the slider value. So when I move the slider, actually the in-browser Python kernel is executing to execute the callback. We have interactive libraries. We have other hyperwidgets libraries like hyperleaflet support. Hyperleaflet is an interactive mapping library on which you can plot data and everything. We have IPyDataGrid support. If you don't know IPyDataGrid, you should really look into it. It's pretty cool. You have conditional rendering on the cells that can be done using Python expressions. And in this example, as you can see, I'm using the requests module to request an online dataset and display it with the DataGrid widget. Of course, we have matplotlib support. More specifically, in this case, I'm using the IPyMPL backend, which is an interactive backend for matplotlib. So you can pan, you can zoom, you can resize the plot. And we now have Altair support. Right now, as of today, if you install Voila, Altair doesn't work in Voila. But in the coming Voila 0.5 release, Bokeh, Altair, and other extensions that I don't know that are supposed to work in JupyterLab will work for free in Voila. So that is cool. And it works in Voila because Voila is built against Voila 0.5. Make your own deployment. So I'm going to make a live deployment of a Voila dashboard. You can go on this repository. This is a template repository, so you can just click on this button, use this template, and create a new repository. And what this does is that it creates a new repository with, under your organization, you can choose the name that GitHub suggests. It will clone the repository under your organization and copy all the files. Then you need to go to Settings, Pages, and Deploy from GitHub Actions. And that's it. The build will start. We can see it here. And it will be deployed in a couple of minutes. Let's not wait. I just want to show you the content of the repo. It's super simple. There is just the GitHub Actions workflows that are used to build and deploy. The git ignore, the README, you all know that. And you have a couple of Conda environment files. So this one, environment.yaml, is the environment that will be used for executing your notebook. So in my case, I wanted pandas and bqplot. And you have a build environment file, which is for the build environment. So it needs Voici, of course, and the kernel. And we also have some content with just one notebook. And that's it. It's super simple. So like I said, this will be published soonish. Let's not wait. I can show it to you later. You can also use soon Voici in Sphinx. So there is the JupyterLite Sphinx extension that allows you to embed JupyterLite in your Sphinx documentation to showcase your library. It will soon be possible to use Voici in there. Voici is super close to JupyterLite, so it's just a JupyterLite add-on. So it's actually simple to make JupyterLite Sphinx support Voici. We have a dashboards gallery online on this link. So please, if you make dashboards with Voici, we are happy to take contributions to add your dashboards in the gallery. Yeah, it's quite small. You can just click on there to add your dashboard. And you have a couple of examples. For example, this one. So it should be cached by my browser, so hopefully it starts quickly. Yeah. And that's it. Voici. So it's interactive. You can actually change the ticker if you want. And this will execute the Python code to update the plots. And yeah, thank you for your attention. We are happy to take questions and while this is building.
Hey, any questions?
Hello, thank you for the presentation. I have a question. When using preheating in Voila, there is any way to trigger the refresh using a webhook, for example?
I'm sorry, I don't really understand your question.
So when running a notebook with Voila,
Yep.
So I want to refresh, to re-execute the notebook, for example, on an external event. So
no.
there is any way to to call, for example, a webhook to trigger the execution of the notebook?
No, actually no. We don't have yet this kind of API.
Thank you for the presentation. I have a few questions. So the first one, is it possible to add authentication to Voila or VC? The second question, what is the easiest way to deploy Voila? Can it be done with a few clicks or, I don't know, with a command line, something like that? What is the easiest way? And so, you have a lot of packages in Python. And so, for example, I have a project in Python. I have a lot of packages. How to check if my packages will work with WASM kernel?
Okay, so
Thanks.
The first question was, is it possible to add authentication? So I know some people did that for JupyterLite, adding authentication. So that should be possible. Or was it for Voila or for Voici, your first question? So for Voila, it's easy. You can deploy Voila with the Jupyter Hub. And there you will have authentication. For Voici, it's a bit more complicated. You could, I know some people included some secrets, injected some secrets in the JupyterLite runtime, but I'm not an expert of this, so I cannot speak of that.
Just one thing about authentication in Voila. Now in the next version, we will use the Jupyter Server 2, and it supports authentication. You can add plugin for Jupyter Server 2 to add authentication to your Voila section.
So the second question was, what is the easiest way to deploy Voila? So The easiest, I would say, on Binder, but maybe Binder is having a lot of load right now. But you can use Binder to share your Voila dashboard, just like you would share a Jupyter notebook from there. It's based on Jupyter Server, so actually Voila comes with a server extension for Jupyter, so you can just change the URL when pointing to Binder to directly start Voila instead of directly starting JupyterLab. That could be the easiest, I guess. Also, you could deploy it on Heroku or tools like that. And the third question was, how do you know if your Python package can be supported by Voici? Well, it depends. In the case here, we were using Zeus Python, which is a Python kernel that we built. And this one uses what we call mscriptenforge, which is an equivalent to condaforge, but for mscripten for in-browser packages. So there are a couple of cases. If your Python package is a pure Python package and is published on condaforge as a pure Python package, it works for free. You can install it. If it's not a pure Python package and needs to be compiled, then you would need to publish your package on mscriptenforge. And we can help for that. You can look for mscriptenforge on GitHub, and we are happy to guide you through publishing your package there. Mscripten.
And if the package is there, then it will work.
Not only. If the package is on condaforge and is a pure Python package, it works. Otherwise, it should be on mscriptenforge. A quick way to check this.
Do you know how many packages are already on mscriptenforge?
I don't know. Oh, that's not the one, yeah? Yeah, we have a couple of them. We have some of them on the left side. So yeah.
Any other questions? Yeah.
So how can I create templates for Voici?
So it's the same templates as in Voila. So you create a template for Voila, and then it will be supported for Voici. And so you can look at simple templates, for example, the Voila material template, which is under the Voila dashboards organization. If you look for this one, you can just copy-paste it entirely and change it the way you want, include the CSS you want and the HTML tags you want. And yeah, publish it, it works. So the demo we published actually, yes, it spawns. It's still work in progress. There are lots of performance issues on the spawning, but we know why. So it's coming with a new version of the kernel that will be faster to load.
Okay, any more questions? I think we have time for one more if there are. Okay, thank you very much.